Thank you to Function of Beauty for sponsoring this video. I was so excited to get to test their products, and as you can see with my hair, they work. Function of Beauty has a bunch of lovely stuff. I got a shampoo, conditioner, body lotion, body wash, and hair serum, and I got to pick and customize what my hair goals were and what type of skin I have to get the right products for me. And it's honestly insane. It hydrated my hair so well. Not only does this stuff come in sustainable packaging, but you get to do a quiz where you fill out your goals for your hair type, and basically all the information they need to make a personalized formula to your type of hair and what your goals are with your hair. So for me, hydration was the main one, as you can see with what I selected. I'll admit that I was skeptical because my hair type can be difficult and I often don't even feel like my hair is hydrated after I condition it, and it gets dry easily. But I was really surprised. My hair felt great, hydrated, even after being outside in the sun all day working with the horses. So anyways, now that I'm basically a beauty YouTuber, you can use the link down below in my description for 20% off of your own box of shampoo and conditioner, and I highly recommend. I'm so happy and surprised. He says, "Look at my butt. Promiscuous boy. Can you sit? Good girl." She says I pose. "Check out my bandana. Happy Halloween," she says.
Banksy, you're a big boy with a big butt. Banksy's a big boy with a big butt. I know, it's Aw, a horseshoe-shaped lake. Aw, Pickle, hi. Hi. Hi, baby.
Why do you have a lump here? What happened?
What? Hang on.
You have a bump on
His
your
name's
head.
Bumpsy.
What did you do?
Look at this, got a little goose egg on his head.
So stupid.
It
I hope it
does.
doesn't stay like that. 'Cause it
Oh,
means it's gonna be
Bumpsy.
ugly.
No, baby, you didn't have that when I gave you hay earlier today. So clearly something's happened since. Oh, baby.
Why are you so ugly?
He says, I'm not. He's so cute. He says, would you like me to come closer and show it to you?
Okay, I'm gonna go get his brushes.
Oh, good boy. Happy dude.
Top line Banksy.
Well, which one of them had like a really big bump on their head last winter, and we figured it was when the storm happened? It went away.
No, George.
Pickle getting his feet pickled.
Good one.
I'm so witty. Nitwitty is what I am.
Banksy.
Good boy. Mimi is watching so that she can perhaps complain. Il fait du vent aujourd'hui.
I didn't think it rained quite that much.
Clearly it did.
Before.
You'd be happy about your pea gravel because it's clearly done a very good job then in the field. The field doesn't look anything like that. Good boy. Yes.
What are you looking at?
Oh, I hear something or I see something.
The horse. If you're walking.
Of who? Oh, so pretty. I want a picture like that.
He stands better time than most of our older horses.
He's so good.
It's just because he likes being groomed this much. Like, I think that's honestly the only reason. With your ugly head.
Stop saying that to him. You're going to hurt his feelings. He just has a tiny speed bump. It will go away.
Speed bump?
Yes.
You're supposed to be half thoroughbred. You don't need a speed bump.
Oh, apparently he does. Or it's a baby bump because he's a baby.
Stinksy. Oh, you're so ugly.
Stop saying that to him. This is just a little bump.
Big side.
Banksy, don't listen to her. It's just a little bump
Banksy, you have to
on your
take
noggin.
care of your face.
I know. Look, says, want to see some more? Want to see some more? Here. Oh, your bump. Are you getting your hair done? Yes. You're getting your hair done. Yeah.
Banksy, as I was saying, you have manners.
Mm-hmm.
Don't move. The scissors are dull. Stinksy.
Oh, this poor bump.
Stinky boy. He says, yes, I am stinky. Now I'm excited to show you some of the training work I do with Banksy. First, I brought him into the flooded arena to try to work on the water with him, but I forgot that I didn't wear my rain boots, so I couldn't walk in ahead of him. So it didn't really work all that well, but he put his feet in and he was mostly just following me. So if I had my rain boots on, it would have totally worked. So next time. Next, with the halter here, I'm just working on a backup cue. I use the verbal cue back when I'm asking him to back up, and then when he does it, I reward it. I dropped the carrot here so it wasn't marked very well, but I repeated it. What I'm doing here is an exercise with his long lead rope to help teach him how to be comfortable with driving lines when he's eventually going to be ground driven. It's a good way just to get horses used to it because some horses freak out when you have the ropes around their bum. He's pretty used to it, but he's following me because he knows I have treats. So we're just working on having him stand away from me and then turn when I pull on the rope from behind him and it wraps around and touches his bum. It essentially just mimics the feel of driving lines on the body. Here I'm teaching the smile. What I do first is I do a cue where you kind of tickle their nose to get their lips moved, and then you reward any amount of lip movage. For some horses who are super tactile and like to play and grab things with their mouth, this will be very easy, especially if they have loose lips and they kind of play with them and investigate stuff with their mouth frequently. Banksy is one of those horses, so as you can see, he starts picking it up very fast. I personally would not recommend teaching this to any horse that is super aggressive with food and hasn't learned how to take treats nicely yet. If they're at risk of biting your fingers and not being polite and only using their lips, don't teach them this because they're likely to get excited and start biting. And I'm also working on keeping him facing forward, and this is why I back him up, because I don't want him moving towards me as he does this, ideally, because then they just keep inching towards you and won't do it at distance. It's important to time your rewards so that you're rewarding them immediately after the behavior you want, and you have to do small approximations of asking what you want. For some horses in the first session, you might only get them to slightly move their lips when you tickle them, and then eventually you'll build to getting them to moving more and mimicking the smile motion, and then eventually you teach them to just do it when you lift your finger up. I'm also using a verbal cue telling him to smile, and then when he does it, I use good as the verbal cue to mark the reward, and then immediately give him a treat after. It's important to time your rewards properly, otherwise you risk marking the wrong behavior. And this also goes when you're using negative reinforcement. If you don't time what you're doing correctly, the horse will not link it to the behavior that you want them to. I'm getting him to back off before I do it when he's being pushy because I don't want him to crowd me when I'm asking him. But with that said, I'm not going to be really picky about how still he stands since he's a baby. And if you really drill them on too many things at once, you'll sour them and it's not going to be an environment that's conducive to learning. So as long as he's not like stepping on me and whatnot, I'm not going to get really mad at him or anything like that because I want to make it a pleasant experience and want to make him want to do this behavior and then as he gets better at it, I'm only gonna have him do it when he's facing forward and no turning in, and making sure that he plants his feet. He's already pretty good at that, and he got better as we went along, but that's just something that's important to note.
Oh, good boy. Oh, it's so good. Are you smart?
He says yes because he thinks he's pretty smart. It's also important to take breaks, especially when you're working with young horses. Don't just do the training consistently without break for long periods of time. Overall, I was only probably working on the smile with him for like 5 or so minutes, maybe 8 minutes. And then he also had breaks where I just turned him loose, or he would get to go and graze and kind of just take it easy and then start doing something else. I think this is very important with young horses, to give them lots of breaks and not be continuously drilling them. Lastly, what I'm doing here is doing the backup cue at Liberty while standing next to him. I do have my hand up on his cheek just to encourage him to face forward and discourage him from turning in, because since he's a baby, he sometimes can't help himself, and he does that. So I'm using this to help him out and help teach the behavior with his face facing forward and only giving him the treats when he's facing forward. And then I'm also working on teaching how to stand and stop when I put my hand up. I can't do it from very far away yet, and then when he walks forward I ask him to back up and then try again and reward the stop. So I only backed up a couple steps there, but I have to reward it because I'm eventually going to gradually extend how far I go away from him.
Oh, so good. Oh.
Look at this ass. Like, hold up. Look at that.
It's a solid one. Hi, baby. Oh, hi.
Make him back up.
Hey. Hey.
So that's the gist of some basic tricks with horses. The important thing is making sure your timing is correct and making it a rewarding experience, and not expecting too much too soon. It really depends on the horse. Some horses take longer to learn certain things, just like people. So be patient and don't expect too much right off the bat. And now we are feeding the horses dinner. These are alfalfa cubes soaked in water. And this is the Herd of Zebras sweater that my mom is wearing. OTTB vibes. Yes, because those are definitely my vibes. Yeah, so we soak them. You don't have to soak them, but we do because I just like making my horses have extra water. And yeah, it makes the rest of their grain soaked and easy to eat. The face of a horse who is starving to death. Never has been fed a day in his life. So right now I have been trying to get my horses on a mostly forage-based diet, and for those of you who don't know, forage is stuff like hay, grasses, and so on and so forth. So I've been feeding them mostly alfalfa cubes and alfalfa pellets. And then some of them get a ration balancer, and then my hard keepers get a little bit of a high-fat grain, but considering I only feed them grain once a day, they're not eating a lot of grain, so I'll show that. Here are my grains. This is the high-fat, which really only Percy gets. I give a little bit to Frosty, but this is mostly for Percy. And then these are the alfalfa pellets, so it looks like a grain, but it's actually just compressed hay. And then everyone else who is fat gets just a ration balancer, which is a grain, but it just has basic nutrients in it, and they get a very small amount. Pogo gets 2 of these once a day, Milo gets 1, and Banksy gets 1. This is how much high fat I give Percy once a day. It's probably less than a pound, and this is the only actual grain that he gets. It's just this high fat, and then the rest is forage. Is my hardest keeper, so he eats the most. I also give him significantly more alfalfa cubes than everyone else, so he gets this once a day too. So he gets the most grain out of everybody. Everyone else gets about this much alfalfa pellets once per day, mixed in with their supplements and their cubes. So it's like literally probably the equivalent of like 2 cups. It's just under a quart, and very light. The ration balancer, and Milo. Pogo's first one, Pogo's second one. Banksy gets a little less than 1 scoop. Frosty just gets 1. As most of you know, most of my horses are thoroughbreds. People say that thoroughbreds are notoriously hard keepers. They need to eat lots of grain, blah, blah, blah. I would beg to differ. I get a lot of my horses off the track, and I ride a lot on the track, and I adjust their diets all the time from race grain to this, and there definitely is an adjustment period. But I would say the biggest mistake most people make when feeding their thoroughbreds is not giving them enough forage. or not giving them high enough quality forage. Like if you're giving them crappy hay and they're only getting like set meals instead of free choice hay, you're gonna have to spend a ton of money on supplements to put weight on, and even then they're probably still not gonna look good. And I say this as someone who has been guilty of doing that in the past, and it was 100% the hay that was the problem, which is such an easy fix, and I was too stupid to do it at that time. So now I'm making a point of trying to get them on a mostly forage diet because it's what's healthiest for them. And a lot of people think that thoroughbreds can't do it, but like I said, I beg to differ. For supplements, this is rice bran. So Percy gets a lot of rice bran compared to everybody else because he's skinny compared to everybody else. Everyone else kind of just gets enough to mask the taste of their grain because the zinc that I give them for their feet does not taste good, and most horses do not like it. So I find the rice bran helps mask the flavor of that.
I bet the O3 also.
So this is the zinc, and it smells pretty potent, and it's kind of an adjustment period to get horses willing to eat it if they're not used to it. So with Frosty, I have to give him less than what he's supposed to get because he didn't finish his grain yesterday. And I'm gonna slowly increase it so that he hopefully doesn't notice the flavor as he gets eating more of it. And that's how I've done it for even really picky eaters, and it typically works. So we'll see if he eats it today.
Do you ever add anything into it to make a better flavor if they're really fussy? Yeah, I meant besides that, like
oils.
Yeah.
More grain.
Okay.
Or pellets. I mean, that's what the cubes are also for. It all kind of mixes together, and it means that they can't eat. Like that's the other part that's good about soaking your grain is if you feed powdered supplements, they can't eat around it because it all mixes in. This is copper. Copper is also for their feet.
I didn't know that.
And then they get like a vitamin powder supplement. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. So the last thing I give them is this oil. It's the O3 Animal Health Omega Complete oil. Percy again gets the most of it because he's the skinniest, and everyone else they really like the flavor of this, and like even my dogs like it, so it's really good for making them eat stuff that they don't. I'm gonna give Frosty extra today actually because he didn't eat his food yesterday when I put this in the can.
There's Milo being impatient.
Okay, so that is the last thing that I do before I mix in the alfalfa cubes. And the cubes, like I said, they add the most weight to their grain. So if I weighed their grain after it's all mixed in, it's quite heavy, but the actual dry, like grain, not forage food that they're getting is not much throughout the day. Like I would say the average person probably feeds their thoroughbred probably about 8 pounds of grain a day. I'd say probably about 4 pounds of feeding. Like think about how much we used to. I know you're making a shock face, but think about how much.
I'm like, it's fully, it's definitely not what ours get.
More than this for one meal, let alone an entire day.
Yeah. To eat it.
I have a system with the cubes too because some horses don't like their food as soggy. So the ones that won't eat it if there's too much water in it get the last bit after I've dumped out most of the water into other horses. Milo is a dumpster, so he doesn't care. He'll eat anything, basically. And Pogo also doesn't really care.
Interestingly, Pogo used to care,
and
right? He used to be more fussy.
Trash can of them all. He would probably eat gasoline if we mix it in his food. Mix it all in, everybody. So now, like, once the cubes are in, it does kind of look like a lot of food. But keep in mind that this is mostly forage, so it's not much different than your horse eating hay throughout the day.
No!
Hey!
See? He's very impatient. Hey! Yeah, stick your nose in there for the fourth
both
time.
Carrots and apples, and hey, pretend.
Okay, and I'm going to show where Percy is, and see Percy's in the little feeding pen. So he's going over there to eat. Right, Frost?
So Frosty is a 7-year-old, probably 15 one-hand thoroughbred gelding. He's built like a quarter horse. He's super thick. Like even when he was racing fit, he was really bulky. You can't really see because he's wearing a blanket. He's by Rosberg. He ran, I think, 43 times and made like an all right amount of money, but he's retired now from racing. I galloped him this year and he needed somewhere to go and I really like him. So I took him and I'm planning on starting him Western and then finding a lease home or selling him. But yeah, I really like him and he's kind of an odd horse. So I wanted to be the one to help him adjust and get trained for a new career, because then I know that it's going to get done in the way that I think does him justice, because he's a lovely boy. I think his last race was about like a month or so ago, maybe more. But he spent a lot of weeks at the track in between racing and waiting to run, because he pulled his shoe off and took off a ton of his hoof when he did it. So they were kind of waiting to see if it was fixable by a farrier before the end of the season, and it wasn't. So then he had just been sitting and eating and getting fat for a little while, and now he's here. So I'm not starting him back yet, because since he was still at the track and being stalled, I think he deserves a break and kind of being out on the field and getting used to being a horse in a herd setting, because he was kind of meek and nervous in the beginning and now he's getting better. So they're in like a triangle. So that's everybody. Then Percy. I typically feed at least 2 types of hay. Right now I have 3. This is an alfalfa Timothy mix. And then I have a Timothy that I'll show you, and then I have a local grass hay that's the least nice out of the 3. So these ones are the highest quality and the best nutrition. And then the local is just kind of to add bulk when they're eating too fast, when I don't put it in nets. So when you don't have like scissors or an X-Acto knife to cut hay with, this is a trick that you can use to get the hay undone. You just grab a piece of twine and then you pull and just back and forth, and then it breaks. So it's great if you forget to bring an X-Acto knife or scissors down often, like I do. There you go, bam. I know everyone has their own opinion on hay nets. We feed most of our hay loose, but when it's really gross and wet like it is, it rained a ton last night, as you can see. But we redid this with pea gravel, so this area of the field is a lot better than it was. But especially for nice hay, when you're spending like $500 a ton, you kind of don't want them to stand in it and shit all over it. So we do hay nuts once a day. And then they also have this hay feeder my mom's filling, that one, and the bucket Banksy's eating out of. And it's important to feed them in like a bunch of different locations, because then there's less resource guarding. If you only feed them all in one place, then horses can get chased out of that area quite a lot, especially if it's easy for one horse to kind of run around the perimeter of like the hay bale or wherever it is and chase the others out. So it's important to give lots of different areas to feed. You may also be wondering, Shelby, why do you feed so many different types of hay? Will that make your horses colic? And the answer is no. So long as the hay is safe for horses and their nutrition needs are met, and you're not feeding them something that's likely to make them sick, they're totally fine. Horses have developed over many, many years to graze on numerous different types of plants and grasses. They're grazing animals and trickle feeders, and it means that they'll have a bunch of different types of grass forage, like branches, leaves, different types of plants. And it's good for them to get different tastes and different. So this is what I do, and I like it. This is the local grass hay I was telling you about, which is nice and fine, but it's just not as rich in calories and nutrients as the Timothy and alfalfa are. But they still like it. And this is the Timothy hay, which is nice and dense, more coarse than the local, but they like it. Smells really nice. It's a little sun bleached, but that's fine. The alfalfa Timothy is the nicest hay, and it's also their favorite. So I like to give them at least 1 flake each loose per day, along with like the Timothy and local and what I put in the nets. So as you can see, everyone else is done and Percy is still eating. So this is how it typically goes. Some of them are good at sharing and eat together. Pogo, for whatever reason, feels the need to wander around and take a bite out of everybody else's pile and never stay at the same one, which is annoying. See, here he comes. Thank you everyone for watching this video. I really appreciate it. For those of you who are interested in supporting my merch store, I have a lot of fun new designs that I've added that I'm super proud of and that are really fun. So I highly recommend checking it out. The link is down below. I have some seasonal Halloween stuff that will not be there after October 31st, so I highly recommend those. I had a lot of fun suggesting the designs to my designers because I'm not artistic. So yeah, check it out at the link below. Thanks guys.